That would be a mistake, however. There is a growing body of evidence that both the structure and the function of the brain change in response to various sorts of mental training, in much the same way as your muscles and cardiovascular system respond to physical training. With the help of such brain imaging techniques as magnetic resonance imaging, MRI, neuroscientists have begun to study how the brains of people with particular skills differ from the brains of people without those skills, and to explore which sorts of training produce which types of changes. Although there is still a tremendous amount to learn in this area, we already know enough to have a clear idea of how purposeful practice and deliberate practice work to increase both our physical and mental capabilities and make it possible to do things that we never could before. Much of what we know about how the body adapts to training comes from studies of runners, weightlifters, and various other athletes. Interesting enough, however, some of the best studies to date of how the brain changes in response to extended training were carried out not with musicians or chess players or mathematicians, as some of the more traditional subjects in studies of the effects of practice on performance, but instead with taxi drivers. The brains of London cabbies. Few cities in the world can baffle a GPS system like London can. To start with, there's no grid of thoroughfares that can be used for orientation and routing, as you would find in Manhattan or Paris or Tokyo. Instead, the city's major streets are set at odd angles to each other. They curve and they squiggle. One-way streets abound. There are traffic circles and dead ends all over. And through the middle of everything runs the Thames River, spanned by a dozen bridges in central London, at least one of which, and sometimes more, will likely have to be crossed during a trip of any length through the city. And the erratic numbering system doesn't always tell you exactly where to find a particular address, even when you found the right street. Thus, the best advice for visitors is to forget about renting a car with a navigational system and instead rely on the city's cabbies. They're ubiquitous, some 25,000 of them driving around in their big black boxy cars that are the automotive equivalent of sensible shoes, and they are astonishingly good at getting you from point A to point B in the most efficient way possible, taking into account not only the lengths of the various possible paths, but the time of day, the expected traffic, temporary road work and road closings, and any other details that might be relevant to the trip. Nor do points A and B have to be traditional street addresses. Suppose you'd like to revisit that funky little hat shop in Charing Cross whose name you don't quite recall, Lord's or Lear or something like that, but you do remember that there is a little shop next door that sells cupcakes. Well, that will be enough. Tell all that to your cabbie, and as soon as it is automotively possible, you will find yourself in front of Laird London 23A New Row. As you might imagine, given the challenges of finding one's way in London, not just anyone can be a cabbie. Indeed, to become a licensed London taxi driver, one must pass a series of examinations that have been described as, collectively, the most difficult test in the world. The test is administered by Transport for London, and that agency describes the knowledge, what a prospective driver must learn, as follows. To achieve the required standard to be licensed as an all-London taxi driver, you will need a thorough knowledge primarily of the area within a 6-mile